Poprika went rogue again for the second time. We're in the studio. We're not paying for this time.
Rebels.
We are rebels right now. We went rogue. We went rogue a little while ago talking about the big two, and we're back rogue again. We want to talk about the X-Men.
Fitting that we're going rogue.
Oh,
I see what you did there.
Yes, we are going Dazzler this time around. Talking about Poprika. The X-Men just dropped the Dark Phoenix movie. It did not do well at all. It hit theaters this weekend finally after multiple delays to a flaming wreck of dead on arrival. Is pretty much what it was.
It's rough. Man, I feel bad. Honestly, I feel bad for everybody involved.
I don't. $200 million movie earned a franchise low opening weekend of $33 million, which is a second place finish to Secret Life of Pets 2, which also underperformed at the box office. So your number one underperformed, and Dark Phoenix still couldn't be number one after the number one performed.
Where are we in this world where 30-some million is considered a failure? Like,
That's true.
I mean, comparatively a failure, right?
Yeah.
As compared to all other superhero movies.
Yeah.
Well, compared to the other X-Men
also
movies,
compared
like,
to other
that's
movies,
the
compared
crazy
to a $200
thing.
million budget.
Yeah.
That's an underperformance.
This is a franchise that stretches back 20 years.
Yep.
And this weekend was a franchise low. Like, that shouldn't happen based on inflation alone.
yeah.
You know? Like, if 10 of you bought tickets to this, it should have outperformed, based on inflation, the first X-Men movie.
So just a couple of notes I have here. How did it hit $33 million? Well, they gave a big budget movie to a person who hasn't directed a frame of film ever, with Kinberg, right? He wrote Last Stand. He's wrote a couple of X-Men movies, but he has not directed anything. And
He's had his hands on a lot of the X-Men movies. I think.
never directed a frame. And they gave a $200 million movie to a person who has never directed a movie in his
crazy.
life. That's crazy. Multiple pushbacks and reshoots. That lets you know kind of the situation you're dealing with. Absolutely no build-up to make the audiences care about these characters. We just got introduced one movie ago to this new Cyclops.
And I did not remember a single one of them from that movie. I just wanted to, like, until I started seeing ads for Dark Phoenix, I couldn't remember who played any of those characters in the last movie. They seemed so ancillary and they were just underdeveloped in that movie.
Yeah, the only reason I remember, Sophie Turner was one of the names of Game of Thrones. So I remember her as Jean Grey. Ty Sheridan wears the goggle type things in Ready Player One. So
And then you're like, oh, that's the guy.
that dude. Yeah, all right. It's the Ty Sheridan with goggles trilogy. It's an ill-timed movie by a person who wrote X3, which is generally considered the worst of the X-Men
One of the
movies.
Yeah,
It's on the heels of a critically panned X-Men movie with X-Men Apocalypse, a franchise that chose not to evolve with the ever-demanding fans that were wowed by the MCU.
Yeah, it has remained sort of steadily locked in the past. I think that First Class, I think the franchise high was First Class. But that was the first time where we saw them sort of don uniforms that looked remotely like what you would have seen in the comics.
It actually has some blue and gold in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just wish they would just embrace the silliness. It's the same thing I have with the same problem I had with a lot of the DCEU output and where they were going with where they tried to go with that. I think it didn't work because fans want something different now. It's like we're not questioning that this is goofy and silly anymore. Like Endgame proves that. The whole last 11, 12 years of the MCU proves that. Why can't you adapt to this new world?
I wonder if it's them not wanting to adapt or them saying, all right, let's go our own way.
This is the way we do it.
Yeah.
Like, this is the way we do it. This is the way it's always worked for us.
For better or worse.
What is your favorite of the X-Men films?
Does the Wolverine stuff count?
Let's keep it strictly
Take it
to
strictly
the X-Men
X-Men?
films. Yeah, we're not going to talk about too much
I
about
would have
Deadpool.
I think my favorite out of the bunch has to be First Class.
Really, I am
thought-
outclassed here then.
Well, my thing was, of course, after Last Stand, and especially after X-Men Origins Wolverine, it felt like that franchise was dead in the water.
Right.
And coming in, hearing this thing about First Class and everything, I was, of course, you're going to be skeptical. Mm-hmm. And I come in, I was really pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, they brought in Matthew Vaughn, and I was like, the Kingsman dude?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And they took a lot of the...
I think it was the Stardust dude back then, to me.
Yeah. And they took a lot of some of the threads from the previous X-Men movies and actually made something good out of it. Like the Magneto stuff was like really strong. Like coming
Nazi
out of
Hunter Magneto? Oh, come on.
So
speaking of which,
The expanded scene from the original
yeah,
X-Men movie,
yeah, that was brilliant.
It hit a lot of chords that struck true for the franchise, the film franchise, but also the where I was coming from as a comic book fan too. Like I really loved seeing that they just unabashedly made a period piece.
Yeah.
yeah.
And going in initially, I was like, Kevin Bacon, are you kidding me? But he really
Was
put
great.
some
Oh,
work
and
in.
that final scene with him and the coin.
Yeah.
Slow.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
Yeah.
So good.
And I guess people just like it was funny because like towards the end of that movie, like you kind of gloss over the fact that wait a minute, Kevin Bacon was a Nazi.
Right.
That's and like I think one of the problems with this run of X-Men movies we've just stumbled through. Each one took place in a different decade, but I think once you get beyond First Class, there was nothing in any of the subsequent films that locked it into that decade.
Well,
nothing made it relevant to that decade,
Well, it wasn't-
especially the last two, I think.
Yeah, it those last two, it really wasn't even necessary to have them in those
It was
decades.
not. It was
because
completely
there were no
unnecessary.
It would
to
have
have.
been, at least with the First Class movie, they centered around the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Right.
Now,
1962.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen a series where they were like the X-Men were weaving in and out of these events in history and stuff. They alluded to it in Days of Future Past with the JFK assassination and everything.
Right. I thought the comedian assassinated JFK.
Hey, we all know that it was like 15 different people
Well, he
shooting from 5 different locations.
It's just the comedian
It was
on
like
Magneto's shoulders.
It was the Legion of Doom, just like all
They should
that.
they should remake JFK, but that last scene when he's trying to explain where the bullets came from, his head should just explode.
Yeah, that would have been nice if we got from the 60s. You got the Cuban Missile Crisis from the 70s. Maybe they have something to do with Vietnam or something like that. Intervening in the Cold War in the 80s, something like that. And Emmett Frost was the one who really sucked Clinton's dick in the 90s.
Yeah.
The way that
problem with the Vietnam thing is then you would have ran into Wolverine and Sabretooth at some point.
See, that might not have been a bad idea. Putting them in the different decades never made much sense to me.
No.
So Blade gets props, right, for standing out in an era where there were no comic book movies. But I think most people attribute X-Men to being the ones that really kicked the whole thing off, right?
I think that's fair because there's still to this day people who don't know that Blade is a comic character.
Yeah, I think
That's true.
See that was kind of a little safe gamble on Marvel's part. It was like, hey, if we screw up Blade, nobody cares.
True,
but
true,
X-Men
true.
was really the first true like superhero movie that really took off for them.
Yeah. And it seems like after that, they never bothered to evolve, which
Strange problem to have.
I saw on Twitter
That's
somebody
ironic.
said it's ironic that the story about human evolution never actually evolved at all whatsoever. Did the movies rely too heavily on Wolverine?
Well, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, 100%.
Like literally in almost every one of them. Like
Yeah.
it was the Wolverine show.
Wolverine
Yeah.
and Friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, literally the plot of X2 revolved around Wolverine. And
Going
And
to
that
Alkali
might have-
Lake and all
Yeah.
that.
That
I
honestly-
think X2 is the best of the X-Men.
Yeah.
movies.
That could have been one of the reasons I liked First Class so much because I was like, I never thought we would get to a point where Wolverine wasn't the main character of this franchise.
Right.
But here we are. And again, like I think they could only ever make it about Wolverine and Xavier and Magneto, and like they didn't know how to treat anybody else beyond that.
Well,
And I think that's the issue. X-Men are a team before
Yeah.
anything else. And they should have focused on the team aspect, not just the most popular character aspect.
Well, then I don't know if it was Fox's, the studio's meddling or anything, but it felt like it got to a point, like somewhere in that midpoint, where it was just, hey, let's see how many random mutants we can put in here. Like
X3.
just- yeah,
X3
or just
is
bastardized
a
versions
mess.
of them too.
It is a minefield of just bullshit mutants.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Like, I mean,
Why would Magneto want a dude that could literally just change his size or whatever, go from like just being obese to skinny and like, What use does this have in a war?
What are you trying to film? A Slim Fast commercial?
How did he get?
He's with Cobra trying to raise money.
How do you recruit him and the Dark Phoenix?
How do you recruit him? We have peanut butter jelly sandwiches and treadmills. So whichever one you need at the time.
Maybe it was like a kid's like dodgeball kind of pick where it's like, okay, I'll take the fat guy that goes skinny. All right, he's the last one picked.
Yeah. Oh, right, we'll take Jubilee, I guess. I think the X-Men films, I think a lot of people did nothing for Cyclops' image.
Oh no.
At all whatsoever, right? Like he's supposedly the badass field tactician for the X-Men. We didn't see much of that in the X-Men movies.
I think they just characterized him as the stereotypical stick in the mud.
Yeah. Although
Is he a stick in the mud?
I did love that scene in the very first X-Men movie where Wolverine kind of gets up in his face the very first time. You want to get out of my way?
He doesn't back down.
And Cyclops kind of like leans his head over and looks at Charles like, do you want me to kick his ass?
Yeah.
Like, can I kick his ass now? You know, like that was great, but like that became who Cyclops was throughout all these things, and then X-Men 3, God, The Last Stand was just
They did him dirty because he did a DC movie. They did him dirty.
That was a missed opportunity. Like seeing Cyclops actually emote, and he was just broken after losing Jean, and just
yeah. Like his Marsden at the end of X2 when he's speaking to Jean Grey through Professor X, I thought, this is it. This is the scene right here. They just had to carry that over, but they decided to fuck over Marsden.
Yeah, and cut him out like.
And he was
They
mostly
hurt themselves for it. They shot themselves in the foot.
And in X2, he was mostly mind controlled for the whole thing.
That's right.
Yeah, he was.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
So it's like he never got a fair shake. I don't think.
Oh, poor Cyclops. And then the new kid just showed up. What, last movie in?
And who
X-Men
cares?
Apocalypse?
Yeah.
Who cares?
Like, I mean, I don't
Who
care about
cares?
any of these guys. There have been a few X-Men characters that I think I have legitimately cared about throughout this series, and I think Nightcrawler is kind of up there just because I think he was very good in X2.
Yeah, because he has the opening scene of all opening scenes.
That is a tremendous opening scene.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you also have Alan Cumming, who is not a shabby actor.
Yeah.
No.
In the leaders, putting in work like that. And then they have this new kid. I think it's Cody Schmidt-Fee.
Yeah.
playing the
Yeah.
new Nightcrawler. He's
It's
okay,
like,
right?
They didn't give him a whole lot to do.
Right. Are there any other characters that you
That I felt like emotionally connected to
in any kind of way?
Well, okay, so I was very excited when Kelsey Grammer got cast as the Beast in Last Stand.
Like that just made
And when he
so much sense.
and while I hate that movie, when he showed back up at the end of Days of Future Past, I was tickled to no end. I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah,
he was-
that last scene of Days of Future Past is like this X-Men's version of the last scene of Avengers Endgame with
Yes.
all of them lining up for Stark's death.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they got Famke Janssen back.
look who's back. Look who's back.
And the Paquin was there. Okay.
Yeah. So I really loved that bit of casting. Like that's a genius bit of casting. But yeah, I don't know. Like I don't know. They never really tried to do too much for me, I don't think. With regards to getting a real legitimate connection to these characters. Like Magneto, I always love Magneto. And Ian McKellen's great as Magneto.
Oh yeah.
Given good material. I think
yeah.
Michael Fassbender
was excellent, especially in First Class.
Again, First Class, First Class Magneto is my Magneto. Like,
Yeah.
it's tremendous. And there are a lot of lines that Ian McKellen has that really stuck with me over the years. Like, when he's asking Pyro, what's your real name?
Is that what they said?
Yeah. What's your real name?
I still howled every time I'm watching X2 when him and Mystique are just being petty after they have to team up with the X-Men and looks at Rogue is like
When the planes crash and he's
that scene where they're flying together and he looks at Rogue is like, I love what you've done with your hair.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Such a dick move.
Yes.
Great.
I think is Magneto or Wolverine the more fleshed out character?
I would have to say probably Wolverine, especially like coming out of Logan, or especially that and
Wolverine has gotten, 7 of these movies to get fleshed? 7.5. I will give him half of X-Men Apocalypse.
Yeah. But they really, like the Wolverine and Logan, they really had a chance to like flesh him out and make him a fully realized character.
I did like the Wolverine a lot.
Yeah.
I liked 2/3 of the Wolverine a lot, and that last third.
That last with the quote unquote Silver Samurai was not great. I'm so glad they decided to bring James Mangold back for Logan.
Yes.
Is it, speaking of relying too much on Wolverine, did they rely too much on the battle of the ideologies between Professor X and Magneto? Because there's other things in X-Men lore just besides those two things.
See, I understand why they had to do that, because I would say, like, when you read the X-Men books for years on end, it felt to be like a lot of the time travel and then the space stuff, like, I wouldn't necessarily say bogged it down, but if you're not a hardcore reader, you're not going to get into it.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of weird shit in the X-Men content.
Yeah, it goes south.
Again,
like
I mentioned on the last episode, I've been reading like Grand Design a lot, and it just kind of it's a crash course in X-Men history, and there's a lot of weird time traveling. There's a lot of weird space shit. There's just a lot of weird shit in X-Men lore, and I think the easiest way to ground it is in that whole idea that you've got this one sort of pacifist and this one extremist, and they all both stand for the same thing, but they're opposite sides of the same coin.
Right.
And that's the easiest way for any audience to sort of rationalize it without having like a fat alien like Mojo putting them on TV or something like that. Although,
I'm talking about.
bring on some Mojo.
Yeah.
I will. What's up, Val Kilmer as Mojo?
Oh, man.
I'll take it. Another thing that bothered me about these movies, not to just sit here and shit on the movies the whole time, but I think the X-Men films never understood team dynamics as far as fight scenes are concerned.
No.
It kind of seemed to just, when the big climactic third act battle started, it kind of devolved into, all right, I'll fight you, you'll fight him, you'll fight this person, she'll fight her, and then, I'll defeat, you'll defeat, he'll defeat, she'll defeat, and then we'll all come back together for fighting the big boss for the most part.
The fact that we didn't even get the fastball special until like 3 movies in, and even then it was in the danger room. We didn't get a danger room until like 3 movies in.
Yeah.
That's Sentinel head. That's like, just show us the goddamn Sentinel.
And then we got the Sentinels. And what do you think about the Days of Future Past Sentinel?
It was okay.
It was okay.
I thought it was all right. I thought Days of Future Past, when I was sitting there watching it, I was very, very into it. It hasn't quite matured as well for me, but I still think it's on the higher end of an X-Men movie.
I had issues with that movie. Even after. So let's see. Avengers is 2012. So they've dropped 2 movies since Avengers. 3, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
they dropped Days of Future Past, Apocalypse, and now Dark Phoenix. Still, they have not figured out how to get the team dynamics of fighting down when we have just wonderful, perfect examples of how the Avengers fought together. Yeah. And I think it's another testament of them refusing to change with the times. It's sad. The whole thing is sad. To wrap it all up.
I think that's part of the problem with Dark Phoenix and the sort of catastrophic opening weekend it has. I think that for us, like the people who should be wanting to go see this movie regardless of the reviews, we're all looking at it like, yeah, but Marvel's going to reboot it in a couple of years and it's going to be better anyway, so what do I care? It takes more to get me in there at this point.
It's kind of like Jessica Jones season 3 trailer dropped, and I'm just like, I already know it's canceled.
Right.
Yeah, season Punisher. I think I made 3 episodes in the Punisher season 2, and I was like, I'm done.
If they, Jessica Jones, of course, them now knowing that it's canceled and it's done, if they like just went all out or something like that, or
see, all the cancellations would have had to have happened in about the middle of production, which means the scripts are already written. So I'm not sure how all out they could.
Almost like Conan O'Brien when he found out he was, done with the Tonight Show. Right. He still had some shows left to do. Holy crap!
That still hurts me, cuts me deeply. How long ago has that been?
That's been almost a decade.
It's been almost a decade. Long time ago, yeah.
And I still fucking hate Jay Leno. Jeez. To wrap this all up, and I do mention that for Comedy Week, that fucking Jay Leno. To wrap this all up, what stories? So I feel like we're not going to get anything X-Men or mutant-wise in the MCU for quite some time, partially due to the fact that Dark Phoenix has not done well. They want to wait for that stink of Dark Phoenix to kind of wear off before they do anything with it.
They said at least 5 years before they even touch it.
At least 5 years. See, and that came out fairly recently, didn't it? That 5 years? Because I feel like they saw Dark Phoenix. And they were like, ugh. Yeah, exactly. Like, this ain't great. We're gonna have to wait a while to let's get this out here now. Kind of like DC has not touched Green Lantern since what it came out like 2009, see that something like that,
2011 or something.
2011,
like that.
Yeah,
and you got a subtle reference to Green Lanterns in Justice League.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and that's all they've been willing to do because that movie bombed.
They're clearly not concerned about that old Green Lantern franchise at this point because Mark Strong's been recast as another DC villain at this point.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like, who cares?
Yeah, they're not bringing him back for Sinestro anytime soon. So when Marvel finally gets their hands on the X characters, are there any famous X storylines that you would like to see done? Would you like to see a proper House of M, or would you like to see a proper House of M or anything like that? Or
I don't know. Well, I sure as hell know we can't do Dark Phoenix Saga at this point.
Nope.
That boat has sailed
maybe
repeatedly.
Maybe E for Extinction, Grant Morrison.
Yeah, I was thinking something like a little more modern.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know if I would look for a straight adaptation of just about anything, except maybe like the Utopia kind of era where they were on an island. That, asteroid M had crashed. It was just an island in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of San Francisco, and the mutants are kind of trying to coexist with the locals, but they're on their own thing. Like that's the only thing I could think of that might be kind of interesting.
All right.
But yeah, I don't know of a single like X-Men arc.
I'd like to see them build up to the Schism, their version of Civil War,
Uh-huh.
where we get like a Cyclops versus a Wolverine, and the whole thing goes down, something like that.
I could see that. I could see that.
All right, that's it, man. That is it for Poprika Gone Rogue with this episode of X-Men. If you guys like Dark Phoenix, congratulations, I guess. I'm glad you got your money out of it. We will see the X-Men done correctly and properly sometime 5 years down the road. Until then, we will be there to cover it all. Take it easy, guys.